Hi, everybody. I'm Keith.
I'm Kathy.
And we want to ask you a question. Do you want to live to 100? What's your answer?
Sure, why not?
That'd be okay with me, too. So we were recently watching a Netflix documentary series, 4 episodes called Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones. We were so impressed with it that we felt like we just had to discuss this show and tell you what we got out of it and, you know, how it might help you. So the series basically, as I said, it was 4 episodes. And 3 of the episodes follow various communities, most of them remote communities in various parts of the world. And they find these small little communities where the people live to exceptionally old ages as compared to a typical United States community. It wasn't unusual to find people living to 100, hence the name Live to 100. And then they talked about some of the commonalities. And he was trying to find out, the host, a guy named Dan Buettner, was trying to find the commonalities between these communities and what could we learn, what did they have in common, although they were disparate in terms of geography. So they went to these various communities, they talked to lots of people, lots of interviews, talked about their lifestyles. And it was interesting because even though they were very geographically different, there were lots of things that they had in common, weren't there, Kathy?
Absolutely. There's definitely major takeaways that they all have united.
Yeah.
The whole topic is very interesting. I really never heard of blue zones before. And it basically is areas where there's large populations of people who live till they're 100.
Right. And apparently it's not a brand new concept. It's been out for, a couple of decades. This guy's written books and he's worked with communities too, which they highlight in the show, where they applied some of these principles to see if they could increase the average age. And they did. So it may not be new to you. It was certainly new to us, and it was fascinating. He kind of categorized the broad principles into 4 what I would call pillars. One of the most important ones was move your body, right? So We've talked about this in our videos before, but move your body. And then we'll get into these particular categories a little bit more after we just kind of lay them out. Second category, have faith, spirituality, meaning, purpose. So that was kind of caught up, those concepts into the idea of purpose, have some meaning, right? And that's what I would call it, although sometimes it was faith or spirituality. So the third pillar was have a community, interact with others, and part of that was strong families as well, wasn't it? Don't be alone, in other words. That was sort of what I got as one of the big takeaways. Don't be alone. Make sure you have people around you, people that you're talking to, people that you're being with on a daily basis. The last pillar of the 4 was eat a healthy diet. So that was very often whole foods. It was non-processed foods. It was things that you had grown in the ground. A lot of us are familiar with things like the Mediterranean diet and other healthy diets. There was a lot of that involved, including some foods I had never seen before. One of them were these, what were they? Purple
sweet potatoes.
Purple sweet potatoes, yeah.
The thing that stayed with me the most was that the people were so happy. We maybe in the United States think of crotchety old people who aren't happy with life, pessimistic people. They were happy. They were grateful with where they are in life, where they lived, the things they had. And materially speaking, a lot of people didn't have what we in the U.S. would consider, basics. And that was joyful to see. In the U.S., we often don't think as much about the wisdom that elderly people have.
That was such a powerful commonality. Mm-hmm. I mean, I picked up on that right away too. They interviewed just tons of people for this, and they talked about. There was one. It was an Italian village, right, in Sardinia, And there was a woman who'd never been married, but she had been kind of adopted by the community, and in turn she kind of served as a mother figure to some of these people. So when she got old, she just became she got taken care of.
Yeah, it was her extended family. It was
exactly.
nieces, nephews,
Yeah.
their children, their children's children.
Yeah. So that was so powerful, and this is something that stayed with me as well. It was remarkable. He said at one point, the host, Dan, said at one point that when you put your parents in a nursing home in America, you know, that's something that we do often, you've automatically, statistically speaking, reduced their life expectancy by between 2 and 6 years just by putting them in the home, right? In most of these communities that were discussed in the show, this didn't happen at all, did it? You know, in that Italian village, there were no nursing homes.
Right.
They didn't even really know the concept of putting other people away, right? Because they're inconvenient or whatever.
I would say no judgment on people who have family members in a nursing home. There's so many reasons why it might be necessary in our culture, where medical problems, dementia, just to keep people safe.
One thing that really stood out to me was the very last episode where he talked about the future of blue zones and whether this is something that can be a global phenomenon. This is something that can be applied to larger communities, larger societies. Can it be applied to a country the size of the United States? Well, possibly. He went to Singapore, which has instituted a fascinating policy to me. And this policy pays families, it pays children subsidies to live near their parents. Now, their parents can move near to them, or they can move nearer to their parents. And the government of Singapore will subsidize that move and subsidize the new housing. Okay, so Singapore is a city state, so there's a lot more apartments than anything else. But they will pay you to basically be near your parents. Again, to me, that was incredible to see, and the benefits are obvious once you're looking at it in a documentary like this. But I thought it was interesting in that this was a governmental policy that was there to encourage families to be closer, to be nearer to each other, which ultimately could have an economic benefit if these people are being healthier and living longer, but not relying on the healthcare system as much, because being around family keeps them stronger, right? It keeps them feeling better, which means fewer visits, right, to doctors.
Right.
So people like you, right? So that was something that really stood out to me. What do you think inspired you the most?
I think these people did not have a lot of technology in these different areas, and they were still very happy. I thought that was fantastic too. And I do want to say one of the pillars we talked about was moving. And so we're not talking you have to be someone who goes to the gym, who lifts weights. These were people in one village in Italy. Everywhere the people went, it was steep hills. Every single
The village was on a mountainside.
Correct.
So every time they went anywhere, they were walking up a steep hill, not a shallow grade, and downhill. Yeah.
And other people, very commonly, they gardened, and every single day they tended their garden, whether it was watering, whether it was weeding, it was bending down, it was picking the crops that at that time were ready for them to eat, and then they were working in the kitchen, and they were cutting, they were chopping. This is all movement with not traditional exercise per se. So that's why we think that's a very important part of the first pillar of move. You don't have to think of it as traditional exercise.
Exactly. I mean, in America, we're used to, we do DoorDash, right? We don't make a lot of, we certainly don't grow our own food. Some people do. We typically do not. But movement was an integrated part of their lifestyle. They were not big on going to the gym, for example.
Yeah, right.
Their lives were such that they were constantly moving.
Right.
And it was something that, as part of their daily routine, that they were always doing. It was interesting. I mentioned this to you while we were watching it. I saw very few cell phones. And anywhere in the whole documentary, a lot of these communities were very isolated at one time. Some of them still are, but it was a simpler life, and a lot of these were villages where you walked everywhere. You didn't take cars.
Right.
You didn't drive. One of the things that the host mentioned several times, and it really struck me, was how we wake up, we get our coffee or tea in the morning, we get in our cars, right? We drive to work. We sit at a desk. We drive back home. We come home, we sit on the couch, right? Or we sit at the dinner table and eat. And then we go sit on the couch and we watch TV. Our lives are centered around doing things that we're just sitting there letting entertainment come to us, or otherwise driving, or doing things that are not movement. And so that becomes part of our life, right? In the same way that the movement of these communities is a part of their life, going up and down hills and gardening. And in Okinawa, they were talking about how there's very little furniture. So you sat on the floor and then you got up. Well, that's a lot more movement, for example, than sitting on a couch or on a chair and getting up. It's much more cardiovascular work in that way, if you think about it.
Because they ate at a low table.
Exactly.
And so think of, you're basically sitting Indian style, maybe on the floor.
Yep.
And up and down,
yeah.
probably 30 times a day or something like that.
Exactly.
Another pillar was community involvement. And sometimes where you live, you feel like maybe there isn't community involvement, but it could be as simple as going to the library. People are around, joining a book club that people have, joining a knitting club, a painting club, whatever your particular hobby is. There are usually things like that you can look for.
That is just so important, that community. I would say that is probably, if I had to rank the most important factors, I would probably rank that number one. The idea of having a community, people that you look forward to seeing and that look forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
If you're involved in a service kind of a thing, right? If you're helping feed the hungry, for example. If you are volunteering like Meals on Wheels, a friend of mine has been doing Meals on Wheels for a long time. If you find something that gives you meaning and purpose like that, it's amazing the impact it has on longevity, on life. So being around people also gets rid of that feeling of isolation. So that is really a place for you to start. If this is you, if you feel like your life doesn't have the meaning anymore, if you're just kind of a lump, on a couch, well, you can change that right now. And I would encourage you to do that, because what we are seeing is these have real impacts. I mean, these communities, it's working. And it can be you. It can be you too.
So one of the things that they talk about, laughing is tremendous for your health. It releases stress. Singing, same thing. And you can find, places who do karaoke. You don't have to sing well.
Exactly.
You go, enjoy, laugh, have fun.
Exactly. You can learn how to do a new dance. You speak French. You've been learning for a long time how to speak French. I write books, and I'm also doing a YouTube channel with you now. So we are doing all of those things, and you can too. We've only been doing this YouTube channel, a month or two now, but it's already a big part of our lives, and it's something that does give us meaning, because we're hoping we make a difference in your life, just like this documentary made a difference in our lives.
Right.
It really gave us a lot to think about. So it's a 4-part documentary. It's on Netflix, and it's called Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones, or something very close to that. You'll find it if you just type in Live to 100. I can't recommend this enough for all seniors to watch it. For those who are not seniors even, who are getting up there in years. I don't know if I'm a senior yet or not, although I'm a member of AARP. Watch this series. Learn to live longer. You can absolutely do it the way these people are doing it. You can do it, and it's not too late to start, is it, Kathy?
Right. Never too late to start.
If you're 80 years old, you're 90 years old, start doing this today. Start tomorrow. But don't wait any longer.
Find out for yourself the joy that you're experiencing by just simple changes.
Walk up and down the stairs a few times in your house. Walk around the outside of your house. Walk down the block and back. Learn pickleball. In the documentary, this 84-year-old woman who's also a physician was playing pickleball. Great game, although tennis is better. But but pickleball looks like a lot of fun too. So start doing these things now. Watch the documentary and then apply the lessons. As simple as that, isn't it?
It is as simple as that. We really are enjoying the experience ourselves with making just subtle changes as well.
And there's another thing you can do immediately to help your life, and Kathy's going to tell you about that.
We made another video on smoking cessation. Stopping smoking has a lot of interesting tips on how to make you successful when you're ready to stop smoking.
Kathy presented a checklist of 6 steps you can take, and they're laid out in the video. So click on that now. Kathy, love you.
Love you.